actually want to start off by just thanking really everyone across football operations who have worked so hard to execute this weekend throughout the draft. That's, starts with our college scouts, our coaches and player development staff, our research and strategy group, and our contract management team as well. A lot of individuals have contributed over really the last year and a half, for this draft, and really, really pleased with the work that our entire group has done. We are very excited about, the 8, drafted rookies that we were able to add over the past 3 days. And we're excited, much like, really all 32 teams in the NFL, after the draft is completed. But we also know the reality of the situation is all these guys that are come in and work and have to earn roster spots and earn a role. And quite honestly, we have a lot of work to do before we get to September and the season opener. So, we're certainly hopeful and excited about the guys we were able to add to the organization. But we have a lot of work to do before we reach our ultimate goals this season.
Excellent. Thank you, AB. Our first question will go to Tom Withers.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, guys. We've been talking about a lot of measurables today, and I was just curious, Coach, how many 225 reps for you?
0. How about that? Not nearly enough. No,
less than 40, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Tom, he's being modest. You should see the workout that Sean Holes has him on a weekly basis. So,
hey, it feels like you guys really you got a lot of versatile players. And I don't know if that was a prerequisite or not, but was that certainly something that was a separator amongst the guys you were looking at?
I think we really went into it to find players that fit their roles within our offense and defensive systems. Certainly versatility is, an added bonus. But really we went it with prospects that we thought were, number one, very talented, and number two, had the physical and mental characteristics to execute their responsibilities within our offense and defensive schemes.
And just in terms of the linebackers, and you shocked us all with some linebackers, Andrew, but 2 really versatile guys again. Kevin, does that give you guys a better chance then to maybe cover some of these hybrid type tight ends that we're seeing now?
Yeah, Tom, I think that's part of it. I think versatility shows up in this game in terms of alignment, in terms of your job, what you do. You love guys that can pass rush and drop into coverage. So I think you see it across rosters these days. You want to be able to impact the game in multiple ways. And I think at linebacker, certainly the guys we're able to add this weekend, guys that can run, guys that can play the run, guys that can play and pass coverage and zone. So I think that's a big key to our success as a defense, is having a bunch of guys that can do a bunch of different things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Fred Greetham is next.
Hey, congratulations, guys. Looks like you had a good day. Overall, you really addressed and attacked the defense, and it just seems like the team speed on that side. I know you don't look at particulars, but these running quarterbacks, like you have Lamar Jackson, different guys like that. Do you have the guys now that can get after them and maybe contain them more if they get out of the pocket?
I guess, Fred, to answer your question, I know when we had our, end of the year press conference, we talked about adding speed really across the roster. I think the NFL more and more is a bit more of a space game. So for us, really, whether it's offensive side of the ball or defensive side of the ball, we do want guys who can really run and play in space.
Thank you, Fred. Nate Ulrich, go ahead.
Hey guys, just wondering what Joe Woods has been like. Did he bring donuts in today for everyone, or what's going on with him?
Joe's been great. Joe's a great teammate. He's excited about the guys we've added, but Joe wants to help the team any way he can. I think the way the draft shook out early, there were some guys that we identified, and Andrew and his crew went and got, but Joe's a team player all the way.
And Kevin, Paul gave us a little nugget the other night that after you guys made the pick of Owusu Koromoa, you were in, I think, Jason Tarver's office with Joe and drawing up stuff on the whiteboard. Just, can you kind of walk us through what you guys were doing there, and just is that normal, or is it just, you know, a part of being really excited about that?
We were playing tic-tac-toe. No, it's just, you know, when you get these guys, and there's always a possibility that you're adding different players, and you know, we're coaches. So when you get a guy, you run to the whiteboard and you start to talk through the possibilities of where you can align them. No different than what our offensive coaches are doing when you add a receiver. It's just, we can't help ourselves.
Thanks, Nate. Daryl Ryder, go ahead.
Hey guys, you touched on the speed and the versatility, and you really seem to insulate yourselves from maybe some areas where you were a little short last year. Could you touch on why speed and versatility seems to be among the top traits that you've looked for in the players that you've added, not just this year, but also last year? Just it seems that those are the two things that are right atop your priority list when you're bringing guys in. So could you just maybe explain from your perspective, you know, why that is and how that is allowing you to, you know, achieve what you're looking to?
I think speed really, in every phase is certainly the one physical tool or, you know, critical factor that can stress the opposition. Again, especially with today's game. In terms of the versatility aspect, Daryl, I think it's more a function that, you know, football, it's a long season and it's a little bit of war of attrition, and you have to have some level of flexibility with your roster, but also just players, you know, the more that one player can do across, whether it's across responsibilities in the run game and pass game, or across, you know, different, you know, positional requirements, that only makes the job easier for our coaching staff.
And for Kevin, you've talked about creating competition within the locker room, on the field. You guys have clearly done that in this draft class with the players you're bringing in. Every pick you made, everyone's giving you, you know, a standing ovation, talking about just how great the player is and whatnot. Just from your perspective, now you got 8 guys you got to find room for. So could you just talk about, you know, the increased competition you now have at a lot of these positions, and also, you know, finding room for some good young players?
Well, I think AB hit on it earlier, Daryl. We're excited to add these guys to the mix, and then they are competing for a roster spot, and they are competing for a role in the offense, defense, and special teams. So, you know, we went in this thing knowing we're going to add 7, 8, 9 guys, added 8 to the roster. And competition is great. It's always good. You know, cream rises to the top. So I know our team, our veterans are always open to competition. It's what they do every single year. It's what they do every single day. And that's kind of how we're going to approach it. But to say that these young guys coming in are being given anything, that's not accurate. They have to earn it.
Thank you, Daryl. Dan Lobby, you're up.
Hey guys, first for Kevin, I want to ask about Demetric Felton. You know, he's listed as a running back, played some wide receiver at the Senior Bowl. How do you view him?
I think he starts, you know, as in the running back room, but part of the appeal to Demetric was his ability to line up all over. Speaking of versatility, so you know, I think we list him as a running back, but we need to get him on campus and see what he can handle and see what he can do. You know, you got plenty of reps that you can look at down there at the Senior Bowl where he's lining up all over. So that's to be determined in role, but you can pencil him in as a running back at this moment.
And then for Andrew, you know, obviously over the last decade, there's been so much talk about modernizing offenses. And I guess with all the versatility that you brought in on defense, is this sort of a step? I mean, do you kind of view this as what a modern defense should look like now?
You know, I don't know that I would go that far. I think, you know, a modern defense really depends on your philosophy, your organizational philosophy, your coach's philosophy. I know this, we, you know, did everything in our power to make sure that we could acquire talented players that fit the vision that Kevin and Joe have for our defense. And that's really more how we try to construct that side of the ball.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. We'll go to Jeff Shadell.
I was going to ask you about Felton, but Dan beat me to that one. So, hey, Kevin, guy that runs a 4.25 like Anthony Schwartz, what can you do with him?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that was appealing with Anthony. Obviously, he has an elite trait in that speed. He's got world-class speed, as you guys know. And that's a part of his game that we were excited about. And that's why he's added to this roster and then see, again, where his role can grow. He's a young player. And that's the other thing with all these guys. Get them on campus, see what they can handle, move them around, see what they can do, use them in different spots. But he's a guy, if you have that speed, the corner also knows you have that speed. And that's, as you line up, now you can use that to your advantage.
Thank you, Jeff. Mary Kay Cabot has our next question.
Yeah, let me start with, first of all, if I'm counting correctly, I think it's 14 new faces for guys on defense, including the 3 guys that will be coming back in Grant, Greedy, and Andrew. So that side of the ball in particular, can you just address the massive overhaul on defense? I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anything quite like it in terms of that much turnover, and how, what is the level of competition going to be, particularly on that side of the ball? I mean, it seems like a lot of guys might want to be working out a little harder over the next couple months.
Well, I'll start with the second question. Our hope is certainly the level of competition, not just on defense, but offense and within the kicking game is at a high level, really across the roster. We really do believe in breeding competition in every position room. And then in terms of the defensive turnover, I think I mentioned this a little bit in January, that every year, regardless of where your team is, something like maybe like a third of the roster that's turned over on average. This year is a little bit unique that we did have more turnover on the defensive side of the ball than on offense. But I think also part of that is just a function of, where our defense was contractually, exiting the year. We had a number of, unrestricted free agents, and many of them were on that side of the ball. So, look, we love the guys that we brought in this offseason, and, we're optimistic that they're going to be very capable producers. But I think turnover is pretty typical.
Okay. And then, Kevin, this one probably would be for you, and that is with the blessing of the NFLPA, because we checked about it, but he did conduct what I guess could be called a passing camp in Miami or near Miami recently with a bunch of the guys. So just wondering, are you happy they're kind of getting out there and putting it on the grass a little bit and maybe getting a little timing down?
Yeah, I read that, Mary Kay, but I'm going to really focus on what we're doing here in terms of what we're allowed to do in the off-season program. What they do outside of that really doesn't concern me necessarily.
Okay, and I'm going to try to squeeze one more in here real quick, if that's okay. And that is, will you turn your attention now, Andrew, to, is it too early to talk about this, but will you turn your attention to some of the extensions, for Baker, for Denzel, Nick, Wyatt? I mean, is it time to get on those things?
I'm going to turn my attention to the undrafted free agent process next. That's the next.
Okay. All right. I got
Thanks.
it.
Thanks, Mary Kay. Tony Grossi, you're up.
Hey, for both of you guys, a year ago when you devoted so much of the resources to offense, fairly or not, the reaction externally was, now the quarterback has no excuses. So I know we're joking a lot about Joe Woods being the happiest guy in town, but Kevin, what does this do to your expectations of him as your coordinator? He was a little shortchanged last year. You guys seem to admit, personnel-wise. What are your expectations early on the defensive upgrades?
Yeah, Tony, I think all of our coaches, we put high expectations on ourselves. We work really, really hard. Joe and his staff, I think, do an outstanding job preparing our players. It's true that they're going to have to prepare a bunch of new players, and we're going to teach the system to a bunch of new guys and reteach it to a bunch of guys. So we all have our work cut out for us. But in terms of external expectations or anything like that, Tony, I just think it's something that we all recognize. What the second you walk into this building every day, we're trying to just do everything we can for the Cleveland Browns.
And Kevin, what Felton and Schwartz, are they both return specialist projects, or how do you look
We'll
at
see.
that?
It's certainly something that we've been talking about, and we'll see again when we get them here what they're capable of.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Scott Petrick, you're up next.
Hey, Andrew, with the way where you guys didn't draft an edge rusher over these last few days, was that more about the way the board fell or more about you liking some of your young guys like Curtis Weaver and Portegus?
I think it's a combination of both. We like the position group, coming into the draft. There are a number of players, prospects at that position that we also like. But, like I told you guys, we're going to draft with a long-term vision for the team. And ultimately, we're not just going to pick for need or perceived need. The value's got to be there, and we've got to feel comfortable with, whoever we're bringing into the building. But we like our group.
And with James Hudson, is he a guy you envision as a possible swing tackle, which makes you think about Chris Hubbard? We haven't asked about his rehab. Is he on schedule to play this year?
Chris is doing great. He's doing great with his rehab. Zero concerns about Hub. With James, we do think that he has positional versatility across the line. Certainly see him as a tackle, could play left and right, but maybe also a little bit of guard as well. But that's something that, as Kevin's alluded to, a number of guys that we've touched on in the past few minutes, that'll play itself out once he actually gets on campus and we see him on the grass.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Doug Maurice, you're up next.
Kevin, I asked Andrew a version of this question last night, but from your view, Kevin, just how would you describe sort of the plan that the front office and you guys as a group set out for this draft, and then the way you were able to execute it? How well did you feel like things lined up?
Yeah, I thought Andrew and the crew did a great job. I think we stayed true to the board, let the process play out. And Andrew talked about it earlier, but there's 32 teams tonight that are going to be celebrating the draft class, and they're all going to be very excited. So we're excited because we stayed true to the process, but I don't, we got to let this thing play out, and we'll see over the course of years how we did. But certainly, Andrew, I thought, was outstanding, just setting the board, conducting these meetings, and then staying true to the board over these rounds.
And then one more for Andrew. In your experience here in Cleveland, Andrew, the last couple of years, have you had any moments with the draft pick where you had the board, you had the plan, and then in the moment you said, hey, you know what, let's just wing it and take this guy that we didn't plan to take? Or do you do the plan all the time?
Do you know this guy?
I think I know the answer to the question.
Does he look like a wing it guy?
Doug, I can't say I remember a moment where that's the case.
I had to check. I figured, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Back to Dale Ryder.
I'm not going to ask you about winging it behind the scenes here, but could you just, this year was a little bit different as far as a step forward and you guys being able to work in closer proximity. Last year, everyone had to be in separate locations, but could you just, each of you just kind of talk about what was it like, behind the scenes? Did you like have a camera in everybody's office and a group video chat going for the 3 days and why? Just how did you guys pull this thing off behind the scenes while still being in the same building, yet also you had to you stayed separated?
Yeah, I feel like I wish I had a little bit more of an exciting setup for you, Daryl, because I think quite honestly, like a lot of the learnings from the fall with really being in intensive protocols where you're in the facility, but there are a number of things that you have to do maybe virtually. That's largely the process that we deployed this weekend, where largely we communicated on Zoom. Now, the nice thing is all of our offices are, within walking distance and pretty close. So if we needed to have, smaller conversations or go down to see someone, that was easy enough to do. But just because our draft room wasn't quite big enough for everyone that we would have in there, we decided, hey, how can we be close enough together to share this experience together while also adhering to all the, the guidelines and COVID protocols. So this was really the best solution, where we really operated as if it was a normal day in the office, but for any type of, large group meeting, so to speak, we just did it over Zoom. But it was nice to have our scouts in. It was nice to have our scouts and coaches together, and we had it was seamless from an operational standpoint within our draft room.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to that, AB, is just having the scouts and the coaches and our entire group under one roof and a lot of things were still on Zoom, but when you're under one roof, you're hanging out with each other, you're bumping into each other. So that collaborative spirit was certainly there with in person. And I think our scouts do such an amazing job, and the work they did this year with the restrictions that they had, really happy for them to be in the building and a huge part of this thing.
Who was the most frequent dapper? I saw a lot of videos of you, Andrew. After picks, you're doing the socially distanced fist bump. So who was number one in the office to give you dap after making picks?
We're gonna say Paul just because he's not here to defend himself.
All right, with that, we need to get the guys back upstairs. We'll take 3 more questions, one apiece from Marla, Mary Kay, and Scott. Marla.
Yeah, considering the way you guys described how you were on Zoom and everything, could you hear cheers in the building when, picks were made or anything?
I can't say I did, but
yeah, it's much quieter than you think. It's very organized, and a lot of the Andrew does a nice job of letting everybody kind of know where we're going. So 10 picks out, here are the guys we're thinking about. But certainly after the pick is made, I know you had some happy coaches after some of those picks. After all of those picks, sorry.
The goal is to minimize. It's not to maximize the cheers in the building. It's to minimize the boos.
Excellent. Mary Kay, you're up.
Okay, Coach, these 2 are for you real quick. The first one is, I heard you mention something about your rookie mini camp, which I think you're doing somewhere around May 14th. My question is that a virtual mini camp or is that an in-person mini camp?
That will be in person.
That's in person. Okay. So can you just talk about how excited you are to be able to get the rookies here and have a chance to actually look at them in person and see them out on the grass?
Yeah, I think it's a big step in their maturation is getting them here. That's per the CBA. I think a lot of teams are going to be doing it that weekend as opposed to next weekend. So we'll get our guys here, plan on bringing the rookies and the free agents here, get them out on the field, a lot of walkthrough, a lot of meetings, a lot of walkthrough, and then some field work. But it will be just our rookie class draft picks and undrafted picks.
Thanks, Mary Kay. And the last one goes to Scott Petrick.
You guys, we talked so much about adding speed. Do you have to? How much do you think about having the balance with being stout enough on defense and the ability to adjust to whatever game plan your opponent's going to have that week?
No, so it is a balance. It is a balance, Scott. And I think that let's take the characteristics of speed and stoutness. Like they do come in. There is a bit of a sliding scale, right? They come in different quantities. So it's certainly something that that we weigh on both sides of it.